Welcome, guys, back to ILWPOD. I'm your host, Justin Wright, as always. We are here welcomed with the CSW Women's Champion, Chicago sweetheart, Missa Kate.
Hello, how's it
How
going?
we doing?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Excited.
We
Like I
went from
said,
Chicago
excited.
to East Coast like real quick.
Real quick, I'm actually from West Virginia, so maybe that's how we got
Oh,
there.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so it comes a little natural to you. I gotcha.
it happens. Sometimes I talk real Chicago, sometimes I talk real Southern. It just pops out whenever it wants.
Nice. There you go.
Before we get into questions, is there anything you want to plug? Social medias, upcoming events, things like that.
I know we're gonna talk about some events. So real quick, social media, Missa Kate 23, which is spelled Missakate, the number 23. Because I'm great like Jordan. I was born on the 23rd. I was born on Thanksgiving, be thankful. Um, but yeah, I mean that for Instagram and Twitter. I think I'm a hootenanny on TikTok, which is Missa Kate, so feel free to follow that. Um, that's all I can think of right now. Oh, click links and you'll find merch and all that fun stuff.
Sounds good. Makes it short and sweet. I like it.
Okay.
Um, I This is the I Love Wrestling podcast. So the only natural start is to start with when you fell in love with wrestling or when you found wrestling. So when was that?
So I always say I had two first matches that I saw. And I guess those would be those moments. So the first is when I saw John Cena. Uh, it's a good time to like fall in love, right?
Of course.
John Cena, it was actually his debut against
Okay.
Kurt Angle in Chicago. Um, to me, I'm a very, everything's connected, universe, all that fun stuff, right? And for it to be that was his debut and it was in Chicago. It's at the Allstate Arena, a place that I've been to multiple times, a place that my family's worked at. And I've been behind the curtain and like seen, you know, some stuff. It sounds weird out of context. But yeah, so it was really cool. So when I saw him and that was the first time I was introduced to wrestling, I was kind of like, who's this guy? Um again, I was
What
like,
was
well,
it
there's
about him?
It it's John Cena, man. Like again,
Okay.
like when you see him, he has some kind of like the charisma. It was
I
something with
agree.
the whole, yeah, it was just something natural. Like, yeah, he was wearing like the dorky little trunks, whatever. But it was just like, I don't know, something about him. I was just like, oh, he's cool. I like him. And then I got terrified to never watch wrestling again because my grandfather said I'm gonna get a hole in my stomach and die. And I was like 7 years old, so I was like, I don't want to die. He was trying to say like I was gonna get an ulcer and stuff like that. Because again, when
Yeah.
he started watching, it was Gorgeous George, and they would bet and all that stuff. So he took it very serious. So anyway, I didn't want to die, so I didn't watch it again until when I saw what was it? I don't know what year it is. It might have been '04 or '05. But yeah, it was a match. It was the Edge Hardy versus I'm sorry, Edge Hardy. Matt Hardy versus Edge. Lita was ringside with Edge,
Okay.
and it was the ladder match. The winner stayed on Raw, loser
Okay.
got fired or whatever, right?
I remember that.
Yeah, and again, at the time, I didn't know anything about the storyline. I didn't know anything about the real life beef that was going on. I just saw Lita, and I was just like, oh, she's not afraid to get in there with the dudes. Like she's getting in the ring, she's messing with the ladder. She's, you know what I mean? It was really cool. It reminded me of myself. Like growing up, I had two older guy cousins. So I was the annoying little girl cousin that followed them and their friends around. Like any sports that they would play, I would join in on or they tease me, I tease them back harder and all that stuff. Because you're the little pipsqueak, you got to hold your own.
I was that
So
kid too.
yeah, so that mixed with even like I played sports my whole life.
Okay.
So I would hang out with my guy friends, and when we would play after school, we'd play like softball or baseball or whatever. We'd always get like pop-ups in the cage, right? Everybody else was scared to grab the ball. Well, I was the little freaking however old I was clawing up the freaking cage on top of it, popping all the balls through the holes and stuff and crawling back down. So kind of related. So between John Cena's charisma and I feel like he's a giant dork, I'm a giant dork. So in retrospect, I was like, oh, maybe that's where that connection was. Mixed with Lita being the tomboy. It was a perfect recipe for me. So
Course. So Was there ever any like idea for you to go into any other sports other than wrestling?
So I played soccer for 20 years and some change.
Okay,
That was my number one sport. I played other sports also, but soccer was my main one. And I didn't know how to get to WWE other than, okay, they have to notice you. So I was like, okay,
hmm
I'll start small. I'll go to the Olympics for soccer. So,
small,
you know,
just a little
um,
bit, a little
just a
something.
little. Um, but yeah, so that was what I was planning on doing. I was like, okay, so soccer's my thing. I always got compliments and stuff like that. Um, there was to brag about myself a little, there was a point in time I played on a co-ed team and I played on co-ed teams, I'm sorry, because I was in a park district, but it was co-ed up until eighth grade. And I played from kindergarten to eighth grade, and the coaches were picking me over the guys. Like I was always in the top 2 to 3 to get picked.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm kind of cool. And that mixed with I was a starter both years at my high school, or both years, all 4 years at my high school on varsity. Um, but yeah, and I just it just wasn't for me. It wasn't in the cards for me. So what happened if it wasn't that surprisingly enough, the high school that I went to, there was an indie show and it was CSW.
Okay.
And I was like, what is this? I was like, I could like reach out and tell, I'm like, it's at my school. And if you
That's crazy.
go right, and if you went to the high school, you got in for free because it
Oh,
was your high school. And I was like, oh, I want to go. So I checked it out and they offered training and all that stuff and yada yada yada. Here we are, CSW Women's Champion. But but yeah, if it wasn't that, then I definitely would have tried um soccer. I wish amateur wrestling was something that I thought of. I don't know why it wasn't. I think just at my high school there were no females on the team, so it was never crossed my mind. But I that's something where I would play wrestle and beat the hell out of my older cousins all the time. So I would have been pretty good at it, I think.
that's something like as a fan, I did in high school was amateur wrestle, and like
Mhm.
going in, I'm obviously I knew like it's completely different, but like in my head, it's like they still lock up, they still grapple, it's still the same thing. So like I hear a lot of people actually do the amateur wrestling thing. So it's cool though for you that you took soccer as or that route because it's completely different, which seems to be your theme is going the other way, the different way than other people throughout your career.
A little bit, just a little.
Uh,
Everyone's like,
um,
I'm going this way. Cool. Let me know how that goes. I'll be over here.
hey, it works. It sets you apart from the crowd.
Thank you.
Um, you mentioned CSW, and at that time, whenever you was going to the high school and stuff, was Boz still or Steve Boz still the head trainer?
Yes, he was the head trainer at the time. He's still the head trainer. Um, I trained with him for, I want to say, a year and some change.
Okay,
I trained a total of probably, I think, 6 to 7 months before my first match, which to me
okay.
was too soon. I was terrified. Um, but again, like I was the main girl there, and they wanted more women to be on the show, and I was able to pick things up quick. So they're like, okay, go figure it out. I was like, oh, thanks. No parachute? Love it.
What was your like initial reaction meeting Boz? Because he's an interesting guy.
He is the VOZ. Everyone does a clap. Um, yeah, I don't know. He again, like, yes, he has his character, the BOZ, right? But he also has himself, and it's Steve as a person is cool. I don't have an issue with Steve or Boz, right? But Steve as a person is cool, but yeah, he's definitely the BOZ brother. You can't get
He
away from
is.
the BOZ. Yeah,
No.
he's always BOZ. Like there's
There's
how's
a
it going?
very
All that stuff. Yeah.
thin line between the guy and the character too, because I've had conversations with him, very brief, but there's a thin line, and he's somebody
You've
that
seen it. Yeah. It's like
he's somebody that I'd like to talk to just because you can tell there's a lot there, and Everybody always says, you got to get it straight from the source.
Yep.
Um,
100%. Yeah.
what was your training like for that 6 to 8 months? Like, was it all just basics, or did you get to dive into a little bit more? I heard now, like, for instance, like Axel Rico's there, so like sometimes he'll show you some lucha libre and things like that. Is that something that you was afforded, or what did it look like?
So Axel actually got there after me.
Okay,
Um, I was there first. As far as like the show, I'm trying to think of who's on it now. I think I'm the oldest CSW student, we'll say, that I can remember. Yeah, because I remember Axel getting there and I helped train him a little bit.
that's great.
Yeah, because originally it was so how it is they train Tuesday, Thursdays. Tuesdays at the time would have different it would kind of be more the students. Like Boz would just start like, hey, I want you guys to work on this. So the students would kind of the elder students would teach the newbies and stuff like that. Or, you're leaving the kids unattended, we're gonna act out a little bit. So we're gonna, maybe try some things that probably weren't ready for. Um, but yeah, so he would just kind of be like, "Oh, I want you guys to work on these." Once we did that, then it was kind of like a free for all. Thursdays were his days, were more old school, very like by the book, basics, how you said fundamentals, all that stuff, very basic. And yeah, I again being me, on Tuesdays, how I said we'd have more free reign of stuff. There were a couple people that would come in and they would teach me stuff like head scissors or karanas. I guess like a little bit more of the fancier stuff. And yeah, so I definitely say all the time I get a lot of old school from him. And when it comes to that, like the basics, and I'm happy I had that as my introduction because I feel like that helps me when it comes to storytelling and having matches. After I trained with him, the Lucha Libre, where I got that from, is Bryce Benjamin. He's now retired. But Bryce Benjamin used to train at Freelance. Before that, he trained at Gali under Discovery. He trained with like Mustafa Ali and Kalisto and Gringo Loco, like all of those, that whole group, like they all came up together.
Yeah,
So, a pretty good group to learn lucha from, right? Uh,
definitely. Who
so
better, really, especially in this area? That like those are the three guys you'd want to learn that style from.
exactly. So yeah, I would say more of the lucha stuff from there than I did CSW.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong. Your first match was against Shotzi, correct?
You are correct.
What was it like wrestling Shotzi? And did you guys know at the time that she'd be where she is now?
I did, because I was like, oh, she's just as a person, like she's a very genuine person, and she is such a character.
Yeah.
It's funny, and I told her this, I don't know if she remembers. So when I was younger and I realized, oh, I want to be a wrestler, I would write out different characters. And green is my favorite color, neon green.
Okay.
So I actually came up with this character. I don't know if you're familiar with Mischief. She was more like in like Shimmer, in the
Yeah,
day.
I've
She had
heard of
black
her.
and green. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's where Shotzi got some inspiration from, but that's where I got my inspiration for the character that I made. But the character was Miss Green, green hair, like the checkers, black. So pretty much what Shotzi is to an extent. So I told her, I was just like, yeah, it's really, again, poetic. Like I'm wrestling somebody who I actually wrote up as a character for myself. But her as a person, like she does it better than more than I could ever do. So it's good that I didn't follow through with it. But she's a great person. It was fun wrestling with her. Um, she actually found out it was my debut match, and she offered to roll around in the ring ahead of time in the
Okay.
morning prior to the match, just to make me more comfortable. And again, she didn't have to do that. There's no reason
No.
for her to do that. And then on top of that, I remember she had a double shot, which in wrestling, a double shot is when you have more than one booking in a day.
Hmm.
So after she wrestled me, she went straight to another show. So not only did she have a double shot that day, she came in the morning to train with me extra to make sure I was comfortable, wrestled me after the match. Before she even left, she literally had her suitcase. She was asking me, like, are you okay? Are you happy with everything? Like, and I'm just like, girl, you got another show. I was like, thank you. Yes, I'm ecstatic, but like, I understand you have to go. I couldn't have asked for a better debut in a wrestling. And I try to, ever since that, I always try to take that with me for the newer girls that I wrestle. I try
Yeah.
to be as positive as Shotzi was for me because I know for a fact that not everyone has had that same experience for their debuts. I've heard of a lot of horror stories. So it was, yeah, I can't thank her enough.
Two other female talent that were there around the same time as you that I'm sure you've worked with are Sky Blue and Heather Reckless. Are those girls that you got to train with, and what was your experience like? Working with them in that time frame.
So Sky technically started wrestling before I did, but she was at a different training place.
Okay.
But she started training at CSW, I think a couple months after I stopped training there or something like that. Um, so we just missed each other. And Heather Reckless trained at Black and Brave, but Heather and I kind of, um, yeah, all three of us kind of were the women's division, and Sierra too. Like Sierra,
Yeah.
it was myself and Sierra and another female, Vanessa Azor. She's no longer wrestling, but we were the main three females that would be the female locker room of CSW for the longest time. Um, and then Sky came around and Heather came around. So then we were actually trying to build like a women's division. So we never necessarily trained together. Like I've gone to Black and Brave, I've trained with Heather a little bit, like once, I believe. I want to say once. I don't think more than once. And Sky and I have trained together a couple times, but yeah, it was never like, oh, we're at CSW training together. But coming up with them, it's cool and it's hard because between all three of us, I feel like we have different style. Like Sky and Heather, I think get each other better than uh they get me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Be yeah, so yeah, their styles are more similar than mine and theirs, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Um, so it was fun, all of us like trying new things, um, and kind of using each other for test dummies for certain things and just trying to figure out this game called wrestling. So yeah, I would say most of our training, if you want to call it training, were the matches that we're having in front of
Yeah.
people. Um, which I count it. It's like people don't think about that, but getting reps and matches is also training. Like you could only go over moves so much. Like you have
Yeah.
to learn how to work a crowd in front of a crowd.
100%. That's something like I guess I can relate to in a smaller aspect from podcasting. Like I just started doing this not too long ago, but the reps make it better. Like learning
Yep.
how to frame questions is, I'm sure it's different, but similar to framing a match because you got to make it flow.
Yep.
So I understand.
Story.
Um, Coming up at the next CSW show, which we'll dive into later, Heather actually makes her return. Is that something you're excited for to be able to see somebody that you was wrestling with in 2018, 2019, and now she's back in 2025?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mess with her all the time. Like when she left, I'm like, you're gonna miss me. You just don't know it. I don't care. You can lie about it. No, she is again, she's so good. Like I don't know what happened, and I remember telling her like, I don't know, like 2 years ago, like something snapped in her, like in a good way. Like she
Mm-hmm.
just like did a full 180, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, dude, you're so good. Like, do you realize how good you are?
She's crazy in the ring.
I love it. Yeah. And I wish I was like, how do you have so much energy? I was like, where can I get that? Like, she's like, it's all the energy drinks. But she's only like yay big, so she drinks one. That's like all of her. But no, just kidding. Um, but no, I'm excited to see what she's gonna do because she had a match with Gringo Loco. I think that was her last match, if I'm not mistaken, at CSW. I could be. Don't quote me on it. But yeah, and it was fun watching that because of that dynamic. But yeah, she's someone who can do a lot, and I feel like there's more that she can offer that a lot of people don't know, and I'm very excited to see what that is and for everybody else to see it.
Definitely. Something recently I've started doing on the podcast, I call it a promotion rundown. Um, you've worked with a litany of great promotions. Um, just because time wise, it's hard to get through them all. I'll name them all, and if you
Okay.
just want to like tell us a little bit about your experience there, and give us any little extra information that you want, I'll let you decide what tidbits you give us. But I'll start in Chicago.
Okay.
I will go AEW. AAW. Sorry,
Okay, that's what I was like, wait, which one?
you're good.
AAW. Um, pass. No, I'm just kidding. No, because we're all beefing, right? Because it's like,
Fair
oh,
enough.
CSW,
Yep.
right? No, but AAW, definitely, again, they've been around for a long time. Um, if you look at, you said short answer, I'm kind of trying to make it short. But if you look at
You're
all the
good.
promotions in wrestling or in Chicago, like I feel like everywhere brings something different. And AAW to me, uh, for the longest time was something that a lot of the indie darlings went through, right? So they have it
Yeah.
hung up on their wall. So you have like Seth Rollins, you have Ruby
Tommaso
Soho,
Ciampa,
Tommaso Ciampa,
Penta.
yep, all those people. So it's
Yep.
just like, yeah, the indie holy grail has gone through there. But yeah, so definitely working there. Um, well, anytime you work a match at Berwyn is fun. Like no matter who's there, it's always a great venue. So
It's a
yeah,
great
it's
building too. I like the. I don't know what it is. It kind of reminds me of like the Allstate, where it's all wood, so everything just bounces off of
you
you.
feel it. Yeah.
Yes. Um, Next, I'll go with another Chicago one in Freelance, another big
Mhm.
one up in the Chicago land area.
Yeah, I was there for a little bit because again, when I trained under Bryce, that's where he was the trainer at. And
Hmm.
so yeah, it definitely again is another one that was like I feel like AAW had more of the established indie wrestlers where freelance was taking some of the new indie darlings and trying to show them off. Um, and now I know that they're really focusing on trying to showcase their students and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, it was definitely at the time at Logan Square when I wrestled there. We did the first ever She-Lance Scrabbles and the first and the second She-Lance Scramble. Um, which those that don't know what a She-Lance Scramble is, freelance, what they do is they always start the show off with a scramble, which is six, I think it's like six people, five or six people.
Yep.
And if you don't know what a scramble is, Google it because I'm not going to explain it. So, um, this was the first, and they would have like women here and there, but this was the first time they called it She-Lance Scramble because it was the first time that all of the contenders were all female or all
Okay.
women. So that's what made it special. And the first one was myself, Blair Onyx, um, Elena Black, now known as Cora Jade, Lainey Luck, and Kira. Oh, I can't think of her last name. And there's one more, I believe. Oh my goodness, Jody Threat, and I can't and Kira, but Paranoia was her name at the time, I believe. But yeah, that
Okay.
was the first Lance, and then the second one pretty much had all of those except for Jody and Kara. Instead of Jody and Kara, it was Brooke, Valentine, and Kylie Ray. So, yeah.
Great group of girls.
Right? So needless to say, so that was really cool, and that's something that freelance is like known for doing. They try to like do different things. So
Another one that showcases women's wrestling really well is Uprising.
yes, Uprising. Um, recently I've been on their Dreamwave the end of last year. We finally worked figured something out as far as like dates and whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, I know in the Jay is the promoter there. I know in the past there was like something where I don't know we couldn't get the date or like something. There's miscommunication. But now I'm there. And to me, it's really cool because he's taking all these women, like example, there was a all women's Royal Rumble that I entered at number two, and I was one of the last three to get eliminated. So I was in there for, I need somebody to timestamp how long I was in there for because it had to be at least an hour. Somebody said it was at least an hour,
That's
which I was
badass.
like, I'm glad I have like somewhat cardio. I'm like, I'm glad I didn't have some moments today. Um, but yeah, it was definitely fun. Like Jordan Grace was in there and he does a good job of like mixing that up. And that's something again Dreamwave does is they focus on story or they try to make sure that there's a story so the fans can follow it. So it's really cool to be a part of it. I know I'm going to be having a match against Kylie Ray coming up soon, February 9th, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely come check that out.
That was actually what I was gonna ask about next. Are you excited to be able
I'm
to get back
psychic.
in the ring with Kylie?
Yeah, so I feel like we have this weird streak, excuse me, as I'm sitting awkwardly on this chair. Um, I feel like we have this weird streak where it's like we wrestle each other in a singles once a year or something like that. Because the last time
Okay.
I wrestled her, I think was in like January or February of last year for Warrior. And then before that was, I think it was like 2 years. But anyway, um, yeah, I'm excited because again, it's like where she is now. She just got ID'd, which was awesome, great for her. And then where I am, I'm still trying to grow. Even compared to last year, where I was, I feel like I'm growing. So I'm very interested to see what story that we could tell, and I think it'll be a fun time.
Definitely, definitely. Um, I got three more, and they're getting
I'm
out of the
here.
Chicago
Let me.
area a little bit.
Okay.
Um, some of them might have took place in Chicago, but they're not known for just Chicago. I'll start with Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Well, I wrestled there once with
Okay.
Sky Blue. I don't remember what year it was, but it was like
I think
during
it was like
coming out.
2020. I think
Yeah, it was
2020 or
like
2021.
it was something coming out of quarantine. Because I remember they weren't at their regular venue for some reason. I
Okay.
think it was something COVID related, but yeah, they asked Sky and they said, "Hey, who would you want to wrestle?" And she brought me along.
It's great.
Um, and yeah, we had a quick little match there. And yeah, it was definitely cool. It wasn't at the again, it wasn't at the usual place where they wrestle, they have the shows, but that was pre what OVW is now. It was pre Netflix, all that stuff when they were starting to try to rebuild. I think that was right around the time when they started to get new owners or they were looking for new or something like that. So it was
Was
definitely
was Al Snow there yet?
yeah, he was still there. Al
Okay.
Snow was there. I think he was there for I don't know how long, but he was there for a little bit, and that was the first time I met Haley J.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, it was a cool experience. It just isn't what it is now, so I don't have that much great
Fair
stuff to
enough.
talk about it.
Hey, it happened. Um, you mentioned Warrior Wrestling. Was the Kyrie? I always mess up her name. The Kylie Ray match, was that the only match you got to wrestle for Warrior, or did you get to do any more stuff with them?
So I wrestled Rachel
To
Ellering? No.
Ellering?
Is it no? Who's she's from Indiana. Has like very colorful clothes. Why can't I think of her name right now? It hit my head for a living, guys. Don't blame me.
You're
So
okay.
I um oh it's gonna pop in my head as soon as we get off. Watch. I'll be like, edit this in. I'm just gonna say the name and you can just edit it over.
I got you.
But yeah, Rachel, again, it was really we had a singles there, and that was when we had a match in Indiana. It was at the where it's not a typical venue. It's where it's like the ramp is where you come up and then it's just like it's like a little like weird stadium where
I know what you're
this
talking about.
yeah, I can't remember again, can't
It
remember the
looks
venue
really
name.
unique, but I can't remember the name either. But they do a lot of shows. Did a lot of shows there.
Yeah, that was my first match that I had with them. And
Okay.
then yeah, Kylie was my last. And I want to say I had another one, but I don't remember. I could be completely wrong. Because again, there were a lot of dates where I remember talking, I was just like, okay, did that go through? Did not? But no, yeah, Warrior is a fun place to work also. As far as they also try to bring in talent. I know they changed up now. They're not Warrior anymore. They're a Pro Wrestling Ventures. So they go to different venues, and I think that's their thing now is they try to have shows at different venues and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, it was cool. Again, can't really
Yeah.
complain. I'm pretty
For
easygoing, like for the most part. Unless you get in the ring with me, then I get annoyed easily. But like,
you know, Warrior was always one that excited me just because I don't want to call it a super indie, but like the guys that would come through there, you had Brian Cage and Casey Navarro and just Mike Bailey, Will Ospreay, like all
Mhm.
these great talent came through there. So it's always one that's interested me because you don't. I know they changed the name, so you don't ever hear about it anymore. It's like it just disappeared. So I'm always excited to hear. That's one like personal is like just fun to figure out little stuff about.
Yeah, no, I
Oh,
know that was a place that was a lot of people that they would want to come and they want to wrestle for Warrior.
definitely. Recently you've got to do work with Ring of Honor and AEW. I'll get to AEW next, but what was the spot like with Ring of Honor? I know it was a tag match with Billy Starks and a couple other females. I remember Billy though. What was that like?
It was Billy and Athena against
Yep.
myself and Blair Onyx.
Okay.
And it's one of those, like, I get it. We're there for the story, to help with their
Hmm.
story and stuff. But I'm always like, why can't we help them with that story? You know what I mean? Like, I understand TV and the time and this, that, whatever. Um, if I'm not mistaken, I think we were supposed to get more time and then something happened where they had to cut down our time. Um, but yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, AEW is cool, right? It's supposed to give us an opportunity. I was like, then give us that opportunity. Like, let us show what we got. Like, let us help your talent.
Definitely.
But again, that's just my viewpoint on it. Because otherwise I feel like, well, we're just kind of there, you know? Cool, thanks
Yes.
for catering. Like, I'm not mad.
And
Yeah, I take home good food, so.
I've noticed a lot of times, not disparaging anybody, but like with these Ring of Honor spots or AEW spots, the 3 4 minute matches aren't nearly enough time to tell a story and showcase women wrestling or wrestling in general. Like, you'd think sometimes maybe you could cut down on a 20-minute Jericho spot so you guys could maybe have 5 extra minutes.
You would think so, right?
You
Yeah.
would think, man.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, because especially I know like Tony Storm, she just had that long storyline that she did. And I was like, oh, this is cool. They're giving time to the women. And I was like, oh, kind of not really.
it's
But
it's hit or
yeah,
miss.
so yeah, right. But no, I mean, again, I can't really complain because I have had cool matches. Like, so prior to me being signed to NWA, which I'm now a free agent, but before I was signed to NWA, they did give me some time matches. Um, like I remember one week in particular where I had like two 6 to 7 minute matches or something like that, which was a lot for like a dark, you
Yeah.
know. And so I'm like, all right. I'm like, so is this kind of like evening me out? Because I was like, yeah, before like I had some time. Now it's like we cut your time. So I don't know.
Who knows? Because like sometimes it seems like, especially with them, that they're showcasing women's talent, and then other times it's like we're gonna put it on the back burner. Which the start and stop, I think it just makes it difficult for anybody to grow.
Mhm.
Um, you mentioned like working kind. Sorry, I
Kylie,
messed myself up. Kylie, uh, I don't know if that was where I was going to go. No, AEW Rampage. So sorry.
you good? No, you're
Um,
good.
you got to do two spots recently, more recently. It's some of your early work. You fought Queen Mamanata, who is somebody I
Mhm.
thought was, they was going to boost her, send her to the moon. And then Mina Shirakawa. which that one's really interesting. Tell us a little bit about, Aminata, and then what's Mina like?
Mina's really cool.
Okay.
So really cool in the sense of like how do I say this? Her and I talked after the match too, and again, I was like picking her brain on some stuff, and it was just like she's a really cool person to pick her brain of. How she
Okay.
sees stuff again, and talking to her about Japan style versus American
Understood.
style, stuff like that. Um, and just discussing that with her, she was like, "Oh yeah, I could tell you'd be like going to Japan. Like that's more, I feel like your style based on the conversation that we had." Because I was even like, "Yeah, like I get the American styles entertainment and stuff like that, but how do you still find a happy medium?" Because again, I grew up in the Attitude Era, and I'm sorry, not Attitude Era. I grew up in Ruthless Aggression, and then I
Yep.
went back and watched Attitude Era. But Ruthless Aggression to me was the perfect recipe for
There's a mix of.
storytelling and wrestling. So I felt like that was, again, I was blessed. That's what I grew up and watched. So I kind of got spoiled in watching that, where now and today, I feel like, Attitude Era was all story. And the guys will even say this, no offense, like, whatever, but like, they didn't have the best matches. But everyone was just so into the matches. Because if you really watch the matches back, they're really kind of very similar.
Yeah.
Um, but they were so behind the characters. That's what made them different. That's what made the matches different.
Hmm.
And then you go to the Ruthless Aggression era where it's like, okay, now we have characters and wrestling. But I feel like we were like, it was like here, and then we went up to having both, and now we're like, oh, let's focus on moves. And it's just like, no, it should have just like stayed here.
It would be great if we could have
Yeah.
just kept both because,
But I
like,
feel like with the move to like WWE to Netflix, because again, anybody could say anything that they want. Everyone follows what WWE does.
yeah.
Now, with it being on Netflix, they have to have some kind of story, right? Because that's the whole point of
Hmm.
Netflix. So I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. I'm like, oh, now's my chance. I was like, hopefully, because it's hard. Like for me, I got into wrestling for the story. I'm
Hmm.
blessed that I am athletic and I could pull off to make it look like I know how to wrestle. Um, and I have enough anger in me to make you believe it. But they yeah, like I love wrestling for the storytelling. Like when you think about stuff, uh, perfect example, Eddie Guerrero. Everyone knows who Eddie Guerrero is. Shawn Michaels. Everyone knows who Shawn Michaels is. Can you tell me how many times I mean, you might, because again, it's part of your job, but can you tell me how many times they've won the world title? Probably not. Can you tell me how many titles they won, or how many times they won it, when they won it? Again, you possibly it's your job.
Maybe give or
But
take. Yeah.
right, but I'm like, what are you gonna remember? Are you gonna remember the moments? I'm not gonna
Like,
remember if you trivia quiz me, oh, in 2006, what did, no, I don't give a crap about that. But if you say,
uh,
hey, who had a custody battle over a child? I'm gonna say Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
exactly.
that's the stuff that sticks with you. Um, and like when I first started wrestling, and this is one of the reasons why I trained under Bryce, was when I first started wrestling, there was a promotion called Kaiju Attack Wrestling. It's not the Kaiju Attack that a lot of people know. It was a little indie show over here. Um, and he was the heel. Myself and my tag partner were the good guys, the, new guys on the block, where he was the evil guy and he had evil followers called the Following. And Elena Black, Cora Jade was one of them, and
Okay.
another two that they no longer wrestle. But yeah, we just had this storyline, this like really like we made it like really intense, and we just used our phones and like edited stuff on our phones. Um, but we just had it there in that one place. And I remember going to a freelance show, and again, this is when I started training there, whatever. Um, I wasn't a part of the show, but again, you're new, so you help with setup, takedown, all that stuff. I was just hanging out, enjoying, and I would have fans come up with me asking to take pictures because they knew about the storyline. And this is like a year apart. So I'm
Okay.
like, they remembered that and stuff like that. That's always what stuck with me because again, I can't, going back and watching the match, I can't tell you what I did in the matches, but I can tell you the goofy stuff. Like I was like in a cage, like I got kidnapped, like
Yeah.
like stupid stuff like that. Um, Elena
Well,
Black like licked me, like I got my cut, and she cut open my mouth, and I had blood. So like stuff like that is remembered, but I don't remember your question. I went off on a tangent.
hey, you're good because it was good. Um, you were talking about Mina Shirakawa and how
Yeah,
she,
yes, thank you.
you're good. You're good.
Already off topic. But yeah, we're gonna go back. Yeah, needless to say, yes, she's very, and I wish that we could have had a longer match where, um, just because I more so want to have a longer match so that I can learn from her
Yeah.
and to be able to tell a story longer. She made sure that the match that we did have did make sense with the story. I try to have a little character in there. She tried to give me like a little bit. Um,
It's tough
but
to get character in 5 minute match though, like
mhm.
to because the crowds can be tough, especially when a crowd is
and
expecting a 5 minute match, so they're not invested.
And as a wrestler, and again, I don't know if everybody's like this or if it's just a me thing or just certain people, but when you feel like, again, when they do a bunch of tapings also, and I think that day in particular, I think they recorded both Rampage and Dynamite or Collision and Ramp or whatever. They recorded two shows and some Ring of Honors, I think. Um, it's a long day for a fan
Yeah.
to watch a lot of matches. So when you get out there and you kind of feel the crowd being exhausted, in a weird way, you turn into a little Energizer bunny because you're trying to wake them up.
Hmm.
So it's like any moments that you might have to be a character, you fill that in with energy instead, which could help or hurt you, right?
Yeah.
Um, Look at me pulling back the curtain. But yeah, uh so when it comes to that, but yeah, I would definitely like to have another singles match with her and pick her brain about stuff because I think between her and I and knowing more about her now, uh because I'll be the first one to admit I'm very ignorant when it comes to who's hot in the indies or who's hot in wrestling and stuff like that. And I don't do it intentionally, but I also kind of do it intentionally because
It's probably smart.
I want to try to be in my own head. Or if I'm watching too many different things, without you knowing it, you kind of gear towards that. And I've noticed myself do that. So I'm like, okay, like do enough to keep track of what's going on, but don't get indulged in it, because I still, again, that's, I think, how you mentioned before. I was like, that's how I keep my identity. That's how I've always been able to be different.
I like that because like as a podcaster, I try to do something similar. Like I want to stay up to date with what's going on, but I don't want to be overly up to date because
Yes.
whenever I do a podcast, it's hard to pull information out of somebody if I already know it.
Yep.
Like it makes this job not fun if I already know all the information going in. So
Yeah,
like
and it's not as organic. That's what I love. I love
exactly
organic like
a
moments.
hundred
And
percent.
yep.
Yep, yep. Exactly.
Mhm.
Because I mean, everybody wants to know the highlight things that everybody does. Like it's nice to talk about what somebody did on Raw, but we know what they did on Raw. I want to know what they did before they got to Raw, like what they did on the Indies or what they did to get to Raw or things
Yep.
like that. Um, so it's just nice that was relatable, I guess.
Thank you.
um, I don't want to go overly like into your NWA stuff. I've heard a lot of people go over your NWA career with you.
Okay.
There was a couple little things I just wanted to
Oh,
touch
for
up
sure.
on. Somebody that you were connected with a lot at the time. Her name was Maddie, now known as Ren St. Clair.
Yeah.
Great talent. What was it like, working with her and being able to win those NWA Women's Tag Team Championships?
Um, we didn't know. We didn't even really know we are gonna be a tag at the time. And then they're just like, we're gonna
Okay.
put the tag titles on you. We're like, okay.
It's kind of badass though.
And then we held them for like 200 days. So it was like cool. It was like once when we started getting the hang of it, we're like, hey, then they took them off. We're like, oh, okay, cool. Got it. Thanks. Um, yeah, it was fun. because at the time, I think both of our, she's the one that pointed it out. I never even realized that both of our NWA debuts were in the same weekend, I believe on the same day. Um, and so it's just funny how parallel that was, our time in NWA. The difference between our, I guess, situations or characters or whatever was, she kind of had more free reign. She wasn't given a lot of direction. They're just kind of like, yeah, you're doing great. With me, they're like, no, we want you to be very straight wrestler and this, you know what I mean? I'm just kind of like,
Okay.
okay, but like, I want to have fun. Like, can I do like some, I try to pitch ideas, stuff like that. Wasn't in the cards. It wasn't this, whatever. Cool. So a lot of times you see Maddie and she's just being like her character, and I'm just like, so like, not really doing much. So I wish we had more moments, and I think once we started doing that, we started having more moments of, I was like, you know what, I'm kind of over this. I'm gonna start showing character because I'm getting bored. And I'm like, if I'm
Yeah.
getting bored, I'm not being happy. And then, they took the titles off of us, which whatever, and then she was no longer there, and I was like, okay, cool. Um, but no,
Did you
like, and
have
that was like,
any, sorry, did you have any heads up that she was leaving, or did she just out of nowhere disappear?
um, no, if you ever talk to her, I'll let her tell you, if she
Okay.
wants. Because yeah, I just remember finding out like, oh, Maddie's not gonna be here. What I was like, okay. Um, yeah, so not my story to tell. But
Fair enough.
yeah, not my business, not my problem. Just kidding. But yeah, it was definitely, it sucked because, at that point, her and I were rooming together and we got comfortable to where it was like we're pretty similar, where we're cool hanging out with some of the boys, like, like as they like in the hotel kind of. Um, but also we would, invite like some of the girls to our room because we didn't necessarily want to be with the guys. We want to have like girl time or whatever, like decompress away from everybody. And we were similar mindsets when it came to that stuff. And so yeah, it was funny. We literally turned into a tag team. So yeah, that kind of sucked. But yeah, behind the scenes, as far as like working with her and stuff, picking her brain and hearing what she thinks about the business and how she looks at it and character and stuff that she's done, and she's giving me tips on stuff. That was very helpful because again, it was at a time that I again wasn't a character. I was just a wrestler. So I was just kind of like, what do I do? So I kind of took what she said and now I'm trying to implement certain things. Don't tell her I said that though, because then she's gonna be like, oh, she complimented me and yeah. But she'd be like, yeah, you're welcome. No, but I'm very happy for her and I'm really excited to see what she's gonna do. Um, it's funny, I'll get tagged in random stuff that she posts and
Hmm.
be like, oh, what are we gonna see M95 together again? I was like, well, she doesn't have an M in her name anymore, so I don't know about M95.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was stuff I was like, oh, they would have just let us like have a little bit more fun. And even
Yeah.
like I'm upset at myself where I'm like, I should have pushed for more and I didn't. When it came to certain things.
Did it seem like they had like a strict idea for what they wanted from you and kind of gave her more free reign?
So it was kind of like because okay, when the difference was too also I was contracted, she was not.
Okay.
So that alone, when I'm contracted to a company, I'm like, okay, business, right? Okay, what can I contribute to here? You're paying me, you gave me a contract, what can I contribute? What can I contribute? So I would go to Billy and I talk to him like, hey, what can we do? This, that, whatever. So I don't know if it was like my fault where I'm like, hey, what can
Yeah.
I do? You know what I
Were you
mean?
as
I don't know how to put my
proactive
foot in my
about it?
mouth. Right. I'm trying to think. I'm like, oh yeah, let's, I'm ready here. I'm here ready to do stuff.
Hmm.
Maybe it was like too pushy or like I was in a sights and now he's like, oh no, you gotta do this. But yeah, it was, I guess that's more so what it was.
Okay.
And Maddie was more so like, cool, I'm happy, I'm here, we got the tag belts, this is cool. Like,
Makes sense. Maybe she
yeah,
was more go with the flow, and
yes.
you was pitching, trying to get stuff, get more maybe.
Yeah, because I was like, her and I could do something. I kept seeing, like, I'm like, you have her. I remember they did this tournament thing one year, and we had a tag match against each other. I remember us just like in the back, we were trying to put together the match, whatever. We're just being dorks. I was like, let's put that in the match. We did it, and I was just like, damn. I was like, it's a tag. I was like, we could have so much fun with this. And yeah, I'm sad because I feel like we could have made them some money, like personally. We because I remember when they came out with the M95 shirt, um, talking to the people at the time there that were in control of merch and keeping track of the numbers. Again, business. I'm trying to keep track of where, how are we flowing? How's the money? Are we selling good or are we not? We were the second at the time, we were the second highest pre-sale and the first highest pre-sale. They were the highest pre-sale because it was for men. It was
Okay,
um and it was Thrillbilly, um, Kenny, and Alex, and I can't remember. I can't the Southern Six. I'm sorry, it was a Southern
okay,
Six. They were the first highest pre-sale. So I'm like, well, you got two chicks here that were the second highest pre-sale with an
that
M95 shirt, like pretty quickly, you know what I mean? To me, I'm thinking business. I was like, okay. And then people were picking up on it and social media was picking up on it. I was like, okay, well, we have something here. Let's try to push. But what do I know, right?
well, I mean, you're probably moving on to bigger and better things. So
I would say so. Yeah, I'm very there's stuff. Keep watching. Just wait.
definitely. Um, Obviously, you wrestled for the NWA TV title. You wrestled for the NWA Women's Championship. Those are things we know. But something I was excited for that we didn't get to see a lot of was your Joker character at the end. I'm a huge
Yes.
Joker fan. I heard you talk a little bit about it with Sean from Sean Ross Sapp.
Yes.
Is there any little bit more that like you could tell us about that character? Maybe what you was thinking going into it. I know you did a vignette where you might have murdered somebody with a brick. We don't know.
Just a
Like,
little.
just if there's any insight to that Joker character, I would love it personally.
Yeah, no, it definitely again, I'm growing up, shocker, always a fan of the bad guys. And Joker to me, I just always interested me, right? I think it has something to do with um we always sympathize for some reason for the person who's nuts.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I just saw and I just like him being so outrageous and me maybe saying I am that nuts. But like it's just deep in there. Yeah, like it I don't know, I just found him so fascinating. And me being a dork and me playing pranks again, I wasn't murdering people that you're aware of. And
not that anybody can
but
prove.
yeah, yeah, my record's clean. But yeah, yeah, he just always fascinated me. And if it wasn't him, it was Goblin from Spider-Man. And everyone's like
Okay,
Spider-Man. I was like, no, but Goblin's cool. There's something. And if you look at them, they're kind of parallel a little bit.
they are. They got
Um,
similar characters, kind of.
yes. And green's my favorite color, so if you're wearing green, anything like that, I'm kind of sold. Um, yeah, so with that being said, Joker character. Being a fan of it, Heath Ledger was my Joker. And then when they came out with the Suicide Squad, I was really upset that they cut out a lot of Harley and Joker scenes.
Yeah, the moments between them two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And again, from learning about Joker, I started learning about Harley, but like Harley before Margot Robbie Harley. Not saying anything about like Margot Robbie's Margot Robbie, right?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I was just like very fascinated with them. And there was a Halloween show for NWA. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be a Joker. Nobody's done the Joker, whatever. And then I show up and there's two other Jokers. I was like, what the hell? But yeah, so I showed up to the to the Halloween show as Joker, and I did my entire entrance gear, all that. I implemented every single Joker from Jared Leto, Heath Ledger, um, the head Joker. I can't think of his name right now. Nicholson,
Yeah, Jack
right?
Nicholson.
Jack
Yep.
Nicholson. Thank you. So say Mike. I was like, his name is not Mike. Um, yeah, like I tried implementing everybody, and even like um, just all of them. You know the names. And
Okay.
so yeah, from like having like the M tattoo, um, instead of like a J tattoo, right?
That's cool.
So I had
That's
that. I
different.
had the ha 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 on my neck. I had my hair wet for Heath Ledger, and then on my blazer, I had and here we go for Nicholson. Um, so yeah, I tried to combine all that, and then the Jared Leno was when I turned around and I did the smile thing. Or
Okay.
not Jared Leno. Joaquin Phoenix. That was the last one. That was the last
That
one.
one.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Okay.
Uh, and yeah, it was, and I loved it. And Billy actually saw it, and he was like, "That was cool. What can we do something with that?" I was like, "Yes, please."
Anything,
Anyway,
please.
uh, yeah. So I was like, "Yeah, let's go. Like, let's run with it. Let's do something." And we'd pitch ideas back and forth. And Sal the Pale, somebody who's there, also has a crazy character, is somebody that I would pick the brain of. Aaron Stevens is another one. Um, but yeah, we would always try to find like trying to figure out different promos to do. Like, um, they did end up airing because I thought they weren't going to. My last two matches there, they just didn't advertise me on it. Whatever. Um, and in those two matches, it's kind of like cranking up the character a little bit. So there's like little things and me like laughing more, acting a little crazy. Like we're trying to give snippets, and then we're gonna try to even go more to where maybe um you know, Joker-esque, like I'm playing pranks on people, like I'm maybe hurting myself, like just, people just anything you think of Joker related to
Enhance the character.
enhance the character, but to also we're trying to figure out how can I um show this in the ring. Because a lot of it
Okay.
would have to be done with like promos, vignettes, and um behind the scenes or whatever.
Definitely.
Um, so it was kind of like it sucks, but right when we're like, okay, cool, we're starting to like chip away at it. Right when we're getting to like the meat and potatoes a little bit, that's when they're, not there anymore. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
right when we're trying to figure it out. So nothing too crazy. There was gonna be, I had a lot of fun gear ideas. I should maybe try to share them. If I could find them. They're in my room somewhere. There's a lot of crazy, like little fun, like ideas.
Could we
I
ever see
wanted
him?
to so I don't have the gear made, but I think I have the
Oh, okay.
drawings made.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, but there's just like stuff like that, like just like weird promos, like maybe I'm tying somebody up or I'm locking somebody, or it's like I'm pushing somebody out of a window, like crazy stuff, like, stuff that the Joker would do.
That's better.
At one point I wanted to get like a water gun, but not let people know it's a water gun.
Okay.
Little intense. So it went from like 0 to 100. But
With the NWA at the time, like it could have probably made it to TV. There was other things that made it to TV that probably shouldn't have. But the water gun, though, I mean, Austin brought a gun and did the bang thing, which was cool. It could have been something like that.
yeah. No, it could have been really, yeah. So that's where I'm like, oh, there could have been so many different ways we could have went with it. But yeah, I just put a stop to it. And then I was
Fair enough.
trying at CSW a little bit. Um, and it's still like they're kind of people are questioning it. So yeah, I would say keep an eye on CSW a little bit.
Fair enough. That's a great transition for where I was going for the end of this.
It's almost like I know
Um,
what I'm doing.
it's yeah, you're a natural. Um, I want to. This, I believe, is your second CSW Women's Championship title reign, correct?
Correct. And I was the first ever CSW Women's Champion also.
Shout out to that. Um,
Yes.
how do you think this reign has gone so far? I know your last match was against Haley J, which was
Mhm.
quite the match. I was there. Um, so like throughout the title reign, how have you seen it? Like, have you thought it's lived up to its standards? And what was that last match like with Haley?
Um, I think that this title reign is better than the last because the first title reign that I had, again, that was us trying to build the women's division. And at the time, it was only myself, Heather, and Sky essentially.
Mhm.
Um, they would try to bring in other women here and there, like Sierra here and there also, like before she became like another staple. Um, but other than that, it was like us three to four all the time, and you can only do so much.
Yeah,
Uh, whereas this time around, we had more female talent that we could bring in, and I could wrestle. And I am not a green kid anymore. Like I'm still learning, of course, you're always still learning, but
you're
I'm not
seasoned.
exactly. I'm a little more seasoned. Um, one thing that I wish that I like had figured out just slightly more is a little bit more storyline, a little bit more character, and that's more so on my end. Um, just because of a lot of different moving parts of CSW. Like again, like just trying to figure out where I I overthink if you can't tell.
You're good.
And I'm a perfectionist. So instead of just like going with it and running with it, I'm like, okay, but then if we do that, you know what I mean? So I wish I learned to relax a little bit more and had more fun with the storylines and stuff like that. But um it's not ending. I don't know, I'm talking like it's ending. Um and that's something where I'm like, okay, from this point on, that's something at CSW that I want to do. It's like, okay, I want to continue to grow that character. I want to Missa Kate has so many different layers. And now what layer does Missa Kate have now that she's past just being the wrestler? Like, um, I feel like I'm that what's the Pokemon? It's like Eve Pokemon, right? There's like 12 different of her.
I
That's
think I
me
know
as a
what you're talking
Pokemon. Yeah, that's
about.
literally me. If I was a Pokemon, that would be me.
Okay.
Um, I don't involve, and so two different things. I'm literally like all over the damn place. Um, yeah, so it's just like, yeah, it was typical baby face when I was the first time around. And then I came back and I was still kind of baby face, but again, more seasoned, a little bit more character. And again, my character is more based off of a heel. So
Yep.
trying to transition that to baby face was new. Um, and so now it's like again, after sitting and thinking and studying and relaxing and stuff like that, I have a better game plan of a lot of different things. But now going to Haley, her and I have never had a singles. We actually never even had a match together. I remember talking to her that day, excuse me, and I was like, yeah, I was like, I remember like we had that match like once, but we didn't even touch. She's like, I managed, that it wasn't even in the match. And I was like, oh crap. So she wasn't even in the ring.
That's
She was
crazy.
on the side. Yeah. So yeah, it was like a 6 woman elimination or something. I don't know. Something. We're like, oh, let's all throw women together. It was one of those matches. And yeah, so that was fun. Um, and Haley and I have, even though our characters are different, we're both similar in the sense of we're both just outrageous a little bit in our own rights. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, but major differences between the two
right,
of you.
where and
Yeah,
that's where it's like, and that's where I was always excited to work her. And it's uh I one thing I think would be very interesting, and I want somebody to make it happen, is if Haley and I tagged and her and I are both heels. I feel like that would be a really fun match. And
that could be
God
good.
bless who was ever on the receiving end of that. Uh
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough night.
a little bit, yeah, right. But no, Haley and I think we both have a similar view of the business and we understand it from a different perspective than a lot of other people on the indies. Again, no disrespect to anybody. It's just people aren't taught things. Um, and either, she was taught things, I was taught things, or we learn from our mistakes, or, it's just for whatever reason we get things in a different way that people do. We understand the entertainment, the fun aspect of it.
Yeah,
And that's what we want. We understand, like, hey, if we're not having fun, the crowd's not going to have fun. And moves are cool, but is somebody going to really remember us doing these three things, or are they going to remember, a child slapping her in the face, which did
that's
happen?
what I was. That's what I was gonna say. I was like, probably made that little girl remember that for the rest of her life. Because
Yeah, she so no, that was not planned. People asked me if it was planned. It was not. For those that don't know, when Haley and I had the match, we went around to the outside and I was holding Haley so this little girl could shop her. And she did that at first. And Haley, it was kind of Haley's fault. It was all Haley's fault, actually. Haley's like, and she's like, oh, that didn't even hurt or whatever. And the girl just went smack. Mind you, this little girl is like, I don't know, 7 years old.
she's a real
You
tiny
smacked
little
her.
girl.
Yeah, and like cute little pigtails.
Yep.
And I just hear Haley go, like, you hear her mouth. And I just let her go, and I was just like, did I just see that? I was like, that was great. Um, but again, moments, right? So to me,
Yep.
I'm like, that was really fun, and that's something, again, Haley and I created organically because how we view wrestling. And it's something that other people message me about, and I would even say other veterans might have said some things where compliments and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, so people see it, and I'm like, okay, thank you. Like that to me, sometimes in wrestling, it's very easy again because I'm a perfectionist and overthink um those moments, and that's why I was like, I have to like post that because I'm like to remember for myself, like, no, that at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Like, I want to be that little, I was that little girl,
Yep.
being entertained. So I'm like, if I can do that, then I'm doing my job. I'm doing the storytelling that I wanted, and I'm being able to take you out of, for all we know, that little girl could have been going through something at home. And
Yeah.
me and Haley acting like idiots,
And
for
made that
like
little girl's
10
probably
minutes.
year.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's why, well, again, that's not why everybody does it, but that's why I do it. So,
It's nice to see things like that still happen because like when I was a kid, I remember I don't remember who he fought, but it was a match with Sabu and he went to a table and after the match, I got a piece of the table and he signed it. Like I don't even remember who he fought, but I remember he went through this table, he signed it, and like it's just that moment is there, and I don't have the table piece no more, but I'll forever remember that piece of
mm,
history that I remember that only I could resonate with, and you guys created that for that little girl,
mhm.
which is, I mean, it's what this business is about, is those moments.
Yeah.
Um, bef- before we get off here, I do want to talk about your next match, your next CSW championship match, Three
Mhm.
Stages of Hell, which is exciting.
Mhm.
I've never seen one in person, so excited to be there. But it's against Amina Belmont, who's gone through a little bit of a character change herself lately. Are you
Mhm.
excited to get in there and maybe teach her a lesson?
Oh, 100%. She's a little brat. That's coming from me. Like, I'm the OG brat. You can't out brat the OG brat. But no, I'm excited because again, like when Amina first started having matches, I think, and again, don't quote me, she would have to tell you. Um, but in her first year of having matches, I think I was in there. I was one of her first 10 or something like that matches.
Okay.
So from there to see where she is now, and she is growing into her own and becoming her own character, I'm really excited to see where she is even like a year from now because she's figuring herself out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as we all do, we make mistakes, but then we learn from them and then we grow from them. And I think she's coming into her own. And even though I'm gonna beat her ass, and teach her another lesson, right? Um, I'm excited to see where she's gonna be. And yeah, I think we're gonna have a really kick-ass match. I've never been in a three stages of hell match. Um, it is going to be a pinfall, submission, and then first blood. I have never bled in a match before. Or I've never had a first blood match. Um,
I'm guessing you're
so
not
I don't
planning on it.
know. Took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, I was not planning on it.
Okay.
Her bleeding, 100%. Like her little pink outfit's gonna be turned red real quick. I got red hair, you know what I mean? I gotta make everything else red. So yeah, definitely I would say check it out. Come to CSW. It's the first time CSW's ever had, I think, that type of match, not even for women, I think in general, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. Let alone for a women's title match. and
Right.
they haven't really had a lot of special stipulations for women's title matches, again, to my knowledge. So, again, there's a lot of firsts going out here, and I think it's going to be a good one. I'm gonna have to put my thinking cap on. Um, I'm gonna have to put my foot in her face a couple times, and then yeah, I think I'll be okay.
Okay. I'm excited to see it. Um, my last question before we get off here, I always end with a fun one. There's a debate of Mount Rushmore. Um, who are your personal top four of all time? You know, not what everybody else would say, but who is Missa Kate's top four, Mount Rushmore?
Um, Obviously it's gonna be John Cena, Lita, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be wrestling. So knock
Okay.
two out right away. The last two are always so hard because for so many different reasons. It's one thing when you're a fan and you're a fan of people. It's different when you become a part of the business. Now you look through a completely different lens, and now you're a fan of them for other reasons that you weren't before. Example, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was cool, right?
Yep.
But I wasn't really not saying I wasn't a fan of him. I was just like, oh yeah, he's cool. But
He was
then again, I got the
he
Shawn
was there at
Michaels.
that time.
Yeah, like I got exactly. I got
We
2006
didn't
Shawn
get
Michaels. I didn't get
Attitude Era. We got
exactly.
Ruthless Aggression Michaels with no
Right. Like,
championships, no heel persona, really. I
right. I thought he was
understand.
funny. I thought he was funny because, again, I got DX, the PG version. So I thought it was funny that Triple H was like being the smartass and Shawn Michaels is like, oh, my ears and my, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah,
was like,
it's
oh, that's cute.
funny, but it's not the same thing.
Exactly. So I can't say I was a Shawn Michaels fan until I became a part of the business, and then I researched him, and then I
Okay.
I'm like studying. I'm like, how do I be like Shawn Michaels? You know what I mean? It's like a completely
Yeah.
different switch. Um, so we could do this. I'll do a fan Mount Rushmore, and I can't even do a work like a wrestling. I'm so screwed. Um, well, Jeff Hardy is another person that I'm a
He's on
fan of.
mine. I love him.
Yes, yes. Jeff Hardy's somebody that I was a big fan of, and still am, obviously. Um, and here's a little inside scoop. When I worked for TNA, I was
Okay.
actually there watching Matt and Jeff put the ladder match together. I think it was like the triple threat tag or something like that, TLC, whatever it was, where Jeff painted the ladders.
Yep.
And I'm like, again, I was like in the stands, so I'm trying to make out what they're saying, but it was just so interesting that like watching the stuff that they were doing, because they were trying to make like I don't want to say, because if they do it, I'm gonna ruin the surprise, but they were trying to make certain things work where I was like, how is that gonna work? And it didn't, but I liked watching the effort, and it was
Okay.
just fun watching their brains. Like, I was like, oh, I never would have thought of that. So
Was that when you fought Zaya Brookside?
yeah, it was that weekend, I believe. Yeah.
Real quick before that's something I meant to talk about. Well, we got lost in it. What was that? What was
I talk a
TNA
lot.
like? You're good. I was in there and we got talking, and what was it like working at TNA and Zaya Brookside?
So Zaya, I met before at a signing. We met at WrestleCon. The same vendor brought us in. So we sat next together and we spent some time together.
Okay.
Zaya was cool. She's pretty to herself, not in a bad way. She was like very chill to herself. I'm loud, obnoxious out there, very a
It
little bit of
meshes
different.
well together.
Yeah, right. Um, but yeah, no, putting the match together with her was fun. Um, because we just did like some like fun moments because, trying to figure out if I could face certain things or like where my strength level is. Because again, this is the first time we're interacting in a ring.
Yeah.
Um, so that was fun. That was a fun process. And then Gail Kim putting in her info, or her
Okay.
expertise. Um, so yeah, it was definitely a fun experience. Again, another one that I was like, damn, I wish we had like a little bit more time. Maybe next time.
Do you think you'll be back at TNA?
Um, I would like to say I would like to go back. Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. I like that you don't give a definitive, yeah, I'll be there, or because you leave it open. Because then if
Yeah.
let's say if you don't have something falls through, you didn't lie. I like it. I appreciate it.
Well, plus if
But
I'm just like, it's a fun surprise because it's like, oh, she didn't know, but did she know the
there's
whole
no
time?
surprise.
I'm
There's
a
no
worker.
surprises in wrestling.
No. But
um,
yeah, I'm not gonna finish
that's
this Mount Rushmore. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's just not gonna happen. I
okay.
appreciate it. It's too
I
hard.
want
It's too hard.
fair enough. Um, Misa, thank you one more time. I really do appreciate having you on here. We'll have to do it again. There's a lot I kind of glanced over just for time wise, but love to get you on here so we can get into some more. I want to know more about this indie run that you've been on that's been great.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a good time. I appreciate you having me on, and I think we're gonna be talking in the future.
Sounds good. I will leave this at not only see you next Friday, but I will talk to you soon.
Hey, I like it.
Sounds good.